means somebody has to be up and one has to be down. It's often placed on Adam and Eve. The emphasis ought to be placed on what Yahweh did. To understand that at our basic core, men and women are different. Our brains are made different. Women's brains are larger than males' brains in the area that governs relationship. So women are wired to be more relational than
Welcome back to Community Central. I'm Raychelle Gaston, your host. You know, there's a probing question. Do black men need black women to be submissive in relationships in order for them to be happy? Yes, that's a question that we're asking today. And I have with me James Bernard Kynes, and we're going to discuss this. But before we get started, thank you for being with us on the show today.
Raychelle, you're welcome, and I'd like to thank you and Community Central for the invitation.
All right. Well, let's get started first. Tell us about your professional background and things that you're doing right now.
Personally, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm a certified pastoral counselor. And I practice in Atlanta, Georgia, and my office is in downtown Decatur.
Downtown Decatur. Okay. So when you do what you do, because I know right now probably in your profession there's not a lot of black men, you seem to see a lot of black men probably where you could help them, you know, and we're talking about submission right now. And that question, you know, do they have to have black women to be submissive to them in order for them to be happy?
Well, that is a very good question. My practice is made up about 80% women, 20% men, from various orientations in terms of race and ethnicity. To your specific question with African American men, I think that it is a myth that they carry in their heads that they do need black women to be submissive. And understanding that that is a biblical term, wives be submissive unto your husbands. Some understand, or when I say understand, they know that that text is in the biblical text, and others have heard it. So whether they truly believe it has to be explored once they enter into the counseling context.
Okay, now we hear this term all the time. Black women are aggressive and demanding. How do you feel about that?
Well, that too is an interesting question. Demanding and aggressive. Aggressive by definition, I understand it to mean that they are trying to get their way all of the time. I don't particularly see it that way. I think black women, as I've experienced in the therapy sessions, deeply care about their families. They care about their husbands, and they care about their children. And so, because in our history there has been so much pain with social racism, institutionalized racism, that has impacted our community at large, black women deeply have a hunger of ensuring that their families are best taken care of. And so sometimes what gets interpreted as demanding and aggressive is a misunderstanding of the historical context that has informed black women as well as black men's identity.
Wow. You put that so beautifully. I hope people took the note on that. I'm serious. Because it almost seems to be that we feel that this is what pushes black men even away from black women. You know, that's the term that comes up all the time, that they want, you know, other than black women because they're more submissive to them and that type of thing. But that's good. And if we had more time, we could explore that a little deeper. Okay. But I want to talk about, like, the term marriage. What does that mean?
Well, thank you for that question, because I think it is not clearly understood. It has changed and evolved over the years. Again, from a biblical context, it has been defined as one man, one woman. we know how things have changed in our cultures over the past several years. I kind of hold that particular definition. But when couples come to me for work, for instance, that question of their identity as being a married couple still reigns. So for them, some bring that women should be submissive. I'm the head of the household, which in general means there's a head up. If there's a head of household, that means somebody has to be up and one has to be down, which is not the way the biblical interpretation of the text, or the way I see it, really stands. For instance, in the book of Genesis, where in chapter 2, where that is taken, Adam and Eve narrative, the emphasis is often placed on Adam and Eve. The emphasis ought to be placed on what Yahweh did. And what Yahweh did in the garden was he gave equal or mutual time in the creation of both man and woman. So in the best of our relationships, marriage by my definition is when the two can come together and see each other as mutual exclusively coming together to build and form a family relationship.
Okay, well, you explain things so beautifully. You know, the concept of marriage. So do you feel people are really grasping what that is?
No, I don't think so. I think that at the root of what persons want is to have someone to help them not to feel lonely and alone. And once the myth, once the romance of the initial element of the marriage is gone, then the business of being married comes along. And there they begin to discover the deepest essence of themselves, because husband and wives mirror back to and forth to each other. So what I see in you, I'm seeing also in myself, and vice versa. Therefore, if I don't like what I see in you and I take it out on you, I'm also saying I don't like that within myself. And if I have not made peace with it within myself, then I take it out on you. And that begins to become a cycle. Marriages become more conflict. Couples don't generally understand that because that is more unconscious. And that's why the work of therapy and counseling is essential, so that people who are serious about their relationships can find ways to heal and bridge those gulfs and have a more fruitful partnership.
Okay, and in that partnership, what would be the role of the man and the woman in marriage?
To first and foremost be a team. To understand that at our basic core, men and women are different. Our brains are made different. Women's brains are larger than males' brains in the area that governs relationship. So women are wired to be more relational than men. Men are wired to be more hunters and gatherers. And so at our very core, we're made different. And so to understand that our differences should not work against us, but rather they should work for us. So that core understanding is very, very important in marital relationships, and one that often is overlooked and never discussed.
Okay. And then looking at the concept of the man being the head, you know, and the woman submitting to him, do you feel like most women maybe find it challenging to let the man be the head? And I say that for instance, myself, I'm single, divorced. And I have this, if I'm gonna have someone else lead me, I need him to be leading me. You know, so I don't know if I'm the only person that feels that way, but do you see that a lot? That is it hard or is it challenging for women to let men be the head?
Well, it is, because oftentimes that term head is not fleshed out. What does head mean? God intended for us, from my understanding, not to be head or submissive per se. See, we have to look at those terms also in the historical context that they were written. And somehow we've become locked into those first century definitions, and they really do not work in 21st century relationships. So being head means it's almost like surrendering oneself to someone else's authority, and the other person does not know you well enough, you don't know the other person well enough, so that the other person can take charge, lead. So it really does not work. And that's why I go back to what I said earlier, that the highest essence of the relationship is when the two can be exclusively mutual. And mutuality creates balance, and balance creates more harmony. But it just requires a lot of work to work through those old terminologies and have a refreshing sense of self in the context of the relationship.
Okay. I tell you, it's like, I could see you in the session and everybody, yeah. You know, that's good. Tell us about the services you provide.
Well, thank you. As I said, I am in private practice. I've been a pastor for all of my ministry for 31 years, and I've been a particular marriage and family therapist and pastoral counselor for the past 20 years. And so I see individuals, I work with couples, I also do therapy groups. Like I have an all-women's group, I have 2 all-women's group, 1 mixed group where there are 4 men, 4 women, and I have an all-males group. And so within all of those modalities, I'm working with persons over both a short and long-term clinical relationship. And so when persons come to me, they're inviting me to be with them as they are beginning to discover more about their innermost self. So it could range from depression, anxiety, grief, loss of job, question of my identity, self-esteem. So the issues may vary. Stress-related, job loss, divorce, pending divorce, separation, recovery. It's open-ended. And so I see persons on a weekly basis, normally 45-minute sessions. They pay for the service either out of pocket or they use their insurance because I am a licensed provider. And that is the gist of what I do on a daily basis, sometimes from 8 to 8, 6 days a week. Not on Saturday that long, but every other Saturday occasionally.
Okay. Well, I know it's time for us to get out of here, but I want to say this, at the Discover New You retreat.
Yes.
You had us do an exercise,
okay,
which was to relax ourselves. And I think sometimes we think we know how to relax, but that exercise really helped me. And I say that, I'm not one that can just lay down and fall asleep right away, but I tried it. And before I knew it, someone had texted me or something, and it was 15 minutes until I woke up. I was like, I was asleep for 15 minutes, and right when I had said, I'm laying down at this time, and so it worked. So, I mean, you're true to your gift.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for being with us on Community Central TV, and thank you for being with us as well. And we'll see you on the next show. Have a good one now.